Hello, I'm Betty Crane, and it is August 12th, 2010, and today we're having a conversation with George Roy Bethune, better known to the community and to his friends and family as Roy. And Roy, it is a pleasure to have you, and I want to ask you some questions.
Thank you, Betty. Make them easy.
I will. When and where were you born?
When and where?
When and where?
1914, Atlanta, Georgia.
And can you tell me?
At my grandmother's house.
At your grandmother's house? And whereabouts in Atlanta was that?
On Jackson Street. I think the name of the street now is Parkway Drive.
Parkway Drive. And this year, 2010, you have celebrated your 96th birthday, of course.
You all right?
Did you think you'd last this long?
No, I didn't have any idea. I thought when people got 50, they were old. I used to think
that myself.
Used to think that.
Yes. Well, can you share some early childhood memories when you were in Atlanta? How long were you there?
My family, my mother and father, lived in Cedartown at the time I was born. I don't know why I was born in Atlanta. I guess because that was my mother's home.
Okay.
And I guess that was the reason for that. But I went back with them to Cedartown shortly after I was born.
And you tell me about your extended family, your brothers, sisters?
Got one brother, Kirk. He died some years ago. He was living in California at the time.
And that was your only sibling?
That was my only sibling, right.
Well, what about your parents? A little history about them. Can you give me some information about how they got together and what your father did and your mother?
The best I can remember about what my father did, he was a traveling salesman. He worked for a company out of Rome called Gibson and DeJournette. It was a wholesale grocery company, and he traveled around in North Georgia in Model T Fords.
Is that right?
For several years,
So he wasn't home much?
He would be gone like from Monday to Friday. He would be home on the weekend.
What kind of memories do you have of your dad growing up?
Well, I remember he always had some kind of a job. He had many different ones, but I don't ever remember him being without a job for very long. I remember when he used to come home, when he was doing this traveling salesman job, come home on Friday night, and he would usually bring my brother and me some kind of a little old present, a little toy or something or other. We'd always look forward to that. One weekend he forgot to get anything, and he didn't know what to do about that. But my mother saved the day. She looked in his suitcase and found 2 little bars of soap that you get at the hotel, and she gave us each one of those, and we thought that was just fine.
Fantastic. And your mom?
My mom is a college graduate. She graduated from Bernal College. I think that's in Gainesville, isn't it?
That's right.
And she was a great mom.
Well, that was rather unusual, wasn't it, for women at that time to be college graduates? Now, what about your father? Was he a college graduate?
No. I don't think he even finished high school.
Really?
His father was in bad health, and he actually had to quit school to kind of support the family.
Well, how did they meet, your mom and dad?
I don't know.
You don't know? Interesting.
I wasn't there.
They didn't tell you, eh? They didn't share that story. And how long did they live? I mean, what ages were they when they passed away?
My father died, I believe, at about age 78, and my mother died at almost 90. I think she was a week short of being 90 years old.
What brought you to Bartow County?
Well, I was in school at Georgia Tech, taking the co-op course, and this was back in 32 and 33, height of the Depression. Jobs were very, very scarce. And somehow I heard about this job at Goodyear, at ATCO.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up and interviewed for the job and got the job.
What high school did you go to in Atlanta?
I didn't go to high school in Atlanta. I went to Macon.
Okay.
And I went to Lanier High School in Macon.
And you graduated from high school in
36, I believe. No, wait a minute. 32.
32?
32.
Did you ever go to any high school reunions?
Go to reunion?
Uh-huh.
Yes, I went to several,
Are they still having any?
I think they hold on with me.
I was just getting ready to say, I bet you set the record, didn't you? So you came to Bartow County and applied for this job at Goodyear. So you went in from the ground up after you co-opted at Georgia Tech?
That's right. My first job was a floor sweeper.
Really? How long what did you do when you co-opted at Georgia Tech? Is that what the job you had was?
Mm-hmm.
It was floor sweeping at Goodyear?
Mm-hmm.
What?
I didn't floor sweep,
Yeah,
the whole time when
right.
I started out.
But that's what you began, and then gradually moved it to what?
Plant manager.
There's a lot of years in between there we need to talk about.
In between.
There? So you graduated from Georgia Tech what year?
37.
37. What kind of experiences can you tell me about your college days?
I was busy all the time.
I bet you were.
The co-op course lasted 5 years, but actually we were only going to school half the time, so it was almost like 2.5 years instead of 5. So it was kind of a compressed course.
Now, your parents were still involved, and your dad was still traveling at that time when you were in college?
No, they lived in Macon, and my daddy was manager of the employment office. Mm-hmm. I think for Bibb County, probably. Mm-hmm.
Now, do you have some friends from your college days that are still living and that you keep in touch with? That you can remember? All gone.
All gone.
My goodness. Now, when you came to Goodyear, you started out sweeping floors, and let's talk a little bit about your experiences working there so many years.
I remember the first day I was there. Mm-hmm. And they had a fella carry me around and show me the operation, And the first place we went to, it was a thing called the opening room where they were running cotton only at that time. The rayon and the nylon and the polyester had not come on board yet. Anyway, this opening room is where they chopped the ties off of the bales of cotton and started the cotton through the process of the mill. There was an old fellow there named Vince Jackson. He had one eye, had a patch over one eye, looked like a pirate. He was chopping these ties off the bales of cotton when we walked in the room. He stopped and looked up there. He said, "If that's another schoolboy, I don't like him either." So that was my introduction to the mill.
To the mill.
Yeah.
How big was the mill at that time? How many people were employed?
About 1,200.
Mm-hmm. Big operation,
Pretty
wasn't
big.
it?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see yourself staying there and moving along as time went on?
I don't know why I didn't, but I never did think too much about the future. I just sort of took one day at a time and whatever came along, yeah.
Who were some of the plant managers that you worked under?
Well, Mr. Palmetto was the main one. He was there most of the time. Mm-hmm. When he retired, let's see, Walter Floyd was the plant manager a while, and I can't call the name now.
There's so many.
Anyway, there were 2 or 3 along the line there.
What kind of hours did you have to work back then?
Well, 60 hours a week was the standard work week when I first went there. Mm-hmm. Let me see, 2 or 3 years later, they came along with this, can't remember the name of it now, but anyway, they cut the hours down to 40. Uh-huh. And gosh, that just felt like, you know, when we walked out of that 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I thought, you know, I'm just guilty of something here.
You've been working hard all those years co-oping, and then all of a sudden you got some free time.
You're right.
Do you mind sharing with us how much you were paid when you first started full-time at Goodyear?
Yeah, I remember exactly what I was paid. It was 25 cents an hour.
Really?
And I remember Mr. Palmer told me not to mention my rate to the other employees because I was getting a little more than most of them.
Ah, the rising star of Goodyear. Mm-hmm. What other memories do you have there of the people you worked with, and especially as you got into a more prominent role in running the company?
Well, our big boss from Akron was Mr. Steer, and of course he came down 2 or 3 times a year, and everybody would be on their best behavior, you know, while Mr. Steer was there. Anyway, he's the one that gave me the job of industrial engineer. What do they call it? Anyway, they kind of left me on my own to do what I wanted to you know, try to improve things anywhere I saw fit.
I bet that suits you just fine, didn't it?
It really did. I got 2 or 3 patents while I was on that job.
Is that right? Can you explain what kind? I mean, what involving what?
Yep.
I'm sure you can.
One of them was what we call a portable creel. One of the twisting machines had spools up in the creel, and the cord would run down from the spools and be twisted into a cable cord. Anyway, this portable creel was on a track, so that they just, when one was empty, you just roll it out and roll a new one back in there. Whereas before they had to pull all those spools off and load back the full ones, you know. So it was pretty good saving there.
Well, I'm sure that Goodyear was quite pleased with that.
They paid me well, they said they paid me $1. I don't think it actually did.
Really? Well, what other patents did you have besides that?
Well, I made a little knot tying machine. We had where we'd have the yarn on smaller spools, and we needed to get it on larger ones, you know, so it would run longer. And the way we did that was to tie the yarn, you know, from the smaller spool and run it into a big one, and then tie another smaller one, and do that until they filled the big ones.
My goodness.
So we had to tie knots.
Did you get another $1 for that?
Got another, yeah, said they gave me another $1 for that.
Now, did you have another one? Were there 3 that you had? Did you remember?
Yep.
Okay, what's the third one?
The other one, we found out that, let's see, at first people thought that tire cord in an automobile tire should be flexible and expand and stretch. And later on they decided that was the wrong idea, that it ought to be the other way. It ought not to stretch. It ought to hold what it had there, you know. So we stretched the cord in order to get rid of the stretch. And I devised a little machine to do that.
My goodness. So did they use those machines in all the plants after?
Yeah, they did,
I never knew that about
We had 4, at that time we had 4 tire plants. You know, one was in Rockmart, and one was in Cedartown, and one in Decatur, Alabama. And none of those, Goodyear doesn't own any of those plants anymore.
And now the building is
The building
just
here
about
is gone, yeah.
Yes. Did you hate to see that happen, or what were your feelings about that?
Well, it was kind of sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gene Tilley, you know, is the one that bought that. I called Gene one day. I said, Gene, I've spent most of my life out there in that, working life anyway, out there in that building. I'd like to go see just what it looks like when there's nothing in it. So he said, I'm real busy this week, but I'll call you next week. So he did call me, and I went out there and he had a man in charge of the demolition of the thing, and he showed me around and showed me in the building, and it was kind of sad. They had kind of neglected the building, and the roof had started leaking, and it ruined the floors, the wooden floors in there.
I know you hated to see that.
Yeah, that was kind of sad.
I remember taking a tour with you through the building.
I remember you doing that.
Many years ago. And you were very instrumental in getting the Goodyear blimp up here. And
you rode in the blimp.
I was a member of the blimp club. And you're still a member of the blimp club, I bet, aren't you?
Yep.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, now you retired from Goodyear, how long ago?
Oh my goodness.
It's been a long time.
I think it was 79.
After how many years of working?
About 45.
And you had a long-time secretary that worked for you, didn't you, Ellen Soper?
Ellen Soper, yeah. She worked for Mr. Palmenter.
Oh.
A good many years before. I mean, she just stayed on the job, and I was the newcomer coming in. She trained me.
Now, when did you and your wife meet, Ruth? When did all that come to be?
Shortly after I came to Cartersville and Atco.
So you were a available young man when you came to Cartersville and Atco?
I guess that was right. I was a member of the Bachelor House.
The Bachelor House, okay.
The Bachelor House was a home of Bill Johnson, Earl Dyer, Hayne Hegler, and me, and one or two others from time to time that would come and go.
What a fine group of gentlemen. What a fine group. I bet y'all had some fun.
We had a pretty good time there.
Can you share some of those fun times with us?
Well, I remember one thing. We had this black lady that came in the middle of the day and cleaned up the house a little bit and cooked a noon meal for us. And for our supper, we just had whatever was left over, if there was anything left over. But a lot of times there would be maybe like 2 pieces of pie and 4 of us. So we had to decide who ate and who didn't. Bill Johnson had this .22 rifle. And so each one of us got a shot at the target in the wood box. And the best shooter ate.
Who usually won?
It was pretty even.
Really?
Yeah, nobody won all the time.
Well, how long were you in the Bachelor House?
I don't know exactly, but 3 or 4 years.
Really? And how did you meet Ruth? How did y'all get together?
Gosh, I can't remember.
Usually somebody introduced you back then, isn't that
Yeah,
correct?
that's right.
Through mutual friends. Well, when did you marry? What year?
39.
39. And can you tell us a little bit about your family, your children? It's quite an extended family now.
Yes, it is. We had 3 children. Ann was the oldest, Beth was next, and Bill was the baby.
And Ruth?
They were all born in the hospital at there on Leake Street.
Yes, yes.
Dr. Old Sam, Dr. Howell.
Dr. Howell, right. And now Ruth passed away in...
I believe it was 96.
96. So now your children's children, you are a great-grandfather.
I am.
And can you remember all the names of all these children now?
Well, let me see. If I think a minute, I probably can. Children, did you say, or grandchildren?
Children and grandchildren.
Grandchildren. Ann's children are Libba and Bill Holcomb and Julie Holcomb. And Beth's children are Hal Sanders and Kirk Sanders.
And where do Ann and Beth live now?
Ann lives in St. Mary's, Georgia. Beth lives in Decatur, Alabama.
Okay.
the way Beth tells it is, we carried her over there and then went off and left her.
It's been there a long time. So their children have children.
Well, one of Beth's sons has 2 children, Joe and Ella.
Mm-hmm.
Libba has 2 children. By the way, they're both in college. Gaines is going to Auburn,
Mm-hmm.
and Dylan is going to school up here at Chattanooga, and I forget the name of it. It's a Christian private school.
Mm-hmm.
Julie has one daughter. A daughter.
Emma.
Emma. That's
Emma.
right. Emma.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's it.
And where's Julie?
She's in St. Simon's.
And now, and Ann's son Bill is in Las Vegas,
That's right.
and he's in sports medicine still, or he's a doctor now, isn't he?
Doctor
Has
of
his
sports
PhD.
medicine.
Doctor of sports medicine. So all of your children have are accomplished, have done well.
They've done pretty good.
You're proud of
of all of them.
I bet you are. I bet you are. Well, during your time at raising a family, plant manager at Goodyear, you were involved in a lot of community activities. Can you share with us some of the things you contributed?
I remember one time thinking, going to meetings, I was thinking, I have been to 8 meetings this week. I'm going to slow down.
Mm-hmm. You are a longtime member of First Presbyterian Church,
Yeah.
correct? Mm-hmm.
The
Which
church that brought you here.
You bet, yes, sir. Well, I always have fond memories of that place. Now, where were you and Ruth married? Were you married here?
Yeah, married here. Married at Ruth's house.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, the preacher was, I can't remember his name, but he was the pastor at Sam Jones Church.
Mm-hmm.
He was the preacher at the wedding.
Okay. And that was the year 19 what?
39.
39, okay. I can't remember, right now. Cut. Okay, so other activities that you were involved in with the community. I know you were president of the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, 1 year. Let me see. I had a good many jobs at the church.
I'm sure.
I was tried to be a Sunday school teacher. Taught old Dr. John Cowan. I say I taught him. He was in my class. I don't know if I taught him anything or not. I remember him saying one Sunday, though, that we discussed the fact that the earth was round.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, aren't we lucky that it was round? And I said, what do you mean by that, John? He said, well, if it had been square, we would think all the work we would have had to have done to cut off those corners.
Well, let's see. Now, you've been here a long time, Roy. You have a lot of hobbies, I know, a lot of interests. You certainly got the community involved in a lot of sports things, especially tennis. Your name always comes up when tennis is mentioned. I think you're a big reason why we have Dellinger Park today, because of the interest of wanting tennis courts, because I think Atco had tennis courts, didn't they, way back at the time when you were there, or did that come up later?
Yeah, they had 2 clay courts back then. We used to play pretty often on those clay courts.
And then one day you decided you'd put one in your backyard.
Yes, and then you did. And then Dellinger Park put us out of business.
I know it, but we had a good time, didn't you?
Yeah.
Taught so many of us how to play tennis, and what fun it was. It's just
We did
always
have some fun.
a lot of great memories, memories. What changes have you seen in Bartow County over the years since you came to Goodyear?
No, it hadn't anything changed. It's just the same as it always was.
You think so?
Except that when you went to town a long time ago, you'd see people you knew, but now
I know.
it's unusual to bump into somebody you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you think about the population and the like you say, the size of our town and the growth, how do you feel about all that?
I guess it's just, it had to be.
Mm-hmm. Think it's been handled well?
I think it has.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think most of our elected officials have done a good job.
What have been some of your major concerns over the years with our community as far as the direction we're going and the changes you've seen since you started at Goodyear and had all those patents and were sweeping floors?
Well, you know, way back then, Goodyear and EZ Mills were the two major industries in Bartow County.
That's right.
And of course, that is not true anymore. There are many things here now.
Mm-hmm. And you look at it sometimes and you think, my goodness gracious, and how I started and how long you stayed at one company all those years. That's kind of unusual.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you, I was always pleased with my relations with Goodyear.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a good company to work for.
And it's a good town to live in, right?
Mm-hmm. It was. Still is.
Now, have you always lived in your current house on Ridgeview Drive? Where did you first live when you first came here? After the bachelor house?
After the bachelor house. Let's see, I owned a little house on Lucky Street.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved was moved to Alabama, to the plant over there for about 8 years.
I thought there was a glitch in that period of time somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And then I came back here and bought the house where I'm living now.
Now, how did Alabama compare with Atco?
Well, it was a pretty different situation. Atco was kind of a little subdivision of Cartersville.
Mm-hmm.
It was not part of Cartersville originally, but the plant in Decatur was in the city of Decatur, and Decatur was, probably twice as big as Cartersville, so it was a different situation.
Mm-hmm. I was always fascinated with the Goodyear Village, the home, the neighborhood,
Atco Village.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting time, wasn't it? Most of the workers lived there. Is that correct? During the Depression?
That's where we had one of the houses, that we call the bachelor house. And our rent was 45 cents a week per room. We had a 4-room house, so our rent was $1.80. That included your lights and water, cutting the grass.
And that was in the village there, in the Atco Village.
Yeah.
Okay. When you think back on all these years and all the things you've done, what do you enjoy the most of all of these things that you thought about and invented and you do? I know you
friends. Friends.
You have a lot of them.
A lot of good friends.
Well, Roy, you have a lot of hobbies. I know you're a woodworker.
I like to do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the things you've been working on for your friends?
Well, you and my friend Charlotte Watley wanted me to build her a carpenter bee trap. Well, I had never heard of a carpenter bee trap, but I looked on the internet and they had a picture of one, so I made her one. I don't think it's called a bee yet, though.
Well, what does it look like?
It looks like a little wooden box tapered down this way with a plastic bottle in the bottom and a hole up here where the bee is supposed to go in the hole thinking he's going into his nest, and then he falls down in that bottle and is trapped.
Well, very good. I'm surprised you didn't come up with that and have it patented. Well, now, I know you every Sunday afternoon you have a lot going on in your backyard.
Well, not right lately because of the 90-degree weather, but when the weather permits, we do like to get together with a little croquet game. Mm-hmm. That's what you were thinking about, I guess.
That's what I'm thinking about. Mm-hmm. So you try to do that every Sunday afternoon, though, don't you? Weather permitting.
Yeah.
And also going back to your woodworking skills, I know you've done some work out at the Bartow Children's Shelter.
Mm-hmm.
They call upon you to fix things quite
Patch up
often.
chairs and tables for them.
You're big on repairing clocks.
Well, I've repaired quite a few.
Well, what's the hardest thing somebody's brought to you to fix, that you fixed? Because I know you're always getting interesting requests.
I don't know what that would be, Bet.
And there was something you were working on not long ago when we talked, and you were in a dilemma, I think, but I can't remember what it was.
I tell you what it might have been is an antique table from Roselawn.
That's another
that was
place.
kind of flimsy at best, and I did get it patched up though.
Oh, do they still call upon you to repair things there?
Mm-hmm.
Have you always been good with your hands and working? And
I don't know how good I've been, but I've done a lot of it.
well, how do you spend most of your time now?
You know, I stay busy all the time.
I know.
I can't really think of anything I accomplished.
Well, you certainly have some time spent on the computer.
Yep. And every once in a while, Becky will call me from the church and have a little job they want me to do up there.
Yes, and I'm sure you can do anything they ask you to do.
So far, we've managed to do that.
And you've been through some serious health issues along the way, but you just absolutely amaze us all with your stamina and your strength and the fact that you just don't seem to change.
I've been lucky.
Well, you are set a good example, a very good example. You played tennis for years, as we mentioned earlier. Were you ever a golfer?
Oh, yeah. I played golf and quit that game about 12 different times.
Well, after tennis came along, that kind of took care of that, didn't it?
We used to play pretty regularly down at the old, what do they call that thing? Anyway, where the city golf course was,
Yeah.
there wasn't room for but about 2 holes, but they had 9 down there.
Mm-hmm.
And you can on Sunday afternoon you could get out in the middle of that fairway and get hit in about 6 different directions.
Well, I guess you were always a pretty good athlete growing up. You know, I imagine you were pretty coordinated. You certainly were when I met you, hitting a ball.
Well, I never played on a varsity team except the baseball team at Lanier High School.
Mm-hmm. You enjoy baseball now?
Mm-hmm.
Watching it?
Yeah, I'm a pretty good Braves fan.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are you most proud of?
My family.
Your family. That's a pretty good thing to be proud of, isn't it? Any regrets along the way or things you wish you might have done differently?
I'm sure there were many, many. But I don't.
I don't think you had time for regrets.
I'm sure I did a lot of things, I could have done better if I had thought about it or knew a little better or something. But anyway,
well,
water over the dam.
Water over the dam. That's right. So now you are spending your time with family and friends.
Yep.
And did you get any traveling?
I don't travel too much. I went down to Lakeland, Florida a couple of months ago to see my great-granddaughter graduate from high school.
Well, that's quite an accomplishment. Your great-granddaughter.
Let's see, you're from
I went to
Lakeland.
school in Lakeland, yeah, Florida Southern
Lakeland's
College.
where I went,
Right. It's a lovely town.
Mm-hmm.
But you will be here. This is home, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, this is definitely my home.
Do you have the kids come up very often and y'all get together? And
Every once in a while, they keep getting further and further away.
yeah.
But I think Ann and Jean are planning to come up in a couple of weeks and spend a day or two.
Well, what else out there to do you want to do that you haven't at this point in time? Is there something else out there you'd like to do you haven't done yet?
To do.
You've covered a lot of ground in 96 years.
Yep. Just taking it easy.
Day at a time.
Yeah.
Well, Roy, it's been a pleasure to have this conversation with you. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Betty.